Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair Udall. I was going to run through the whole litany of issues that we have in Indian country in my state, which I know is shared by so many of you. But the main question I wanted to ask Secretary Zinke is, are you going to fight for Indian country in the budget process? Because all of this discussion and all of these issues that we talk about, if we fall back further on financing and on meeting our treaty obligations, not much of it really matters. We aren't going to build better schools. We aren't going to have better health care. We aren't going to have more and stronger law enforcement. And so we need a secretary who is going to fight for Indian country. And I hope that all of the witnesses here will share my commitment to holding BIA and the Department of Interior's feet to the fire, HHS's feet to the fire, the Bureau of Indian Education's feet to the fire, and not leave Native Americans and Indian country behind in this budget process. We've been left behind far too often. And so this is our opportunity, and if we don't take it to stand together and fight for resources, we're going to fall further and further behind. And so I invite anyone to comment on that, but I feel very strongly that the main job of the Secretary of Interior as it relates to Indian country is to be the advocate and fighting for resources for Indian country.
Thank you, Ms. Heitkamp. I've got a comment or two. Hopefully I can keep it organized in my head, but I understand if you were here earlier for my testimony, those were at the top of the list of asks that we will ask the Secretary to hold fast on, and we expect his strong leadership on it, on all of those issues. I just can't help but tie together all of the concerns that we've shared here today with a lot of the concerns that you all have. I know that the senator from Arizona, Mr. McCain, came in long enough to express his concerns on education. Hopefully it wasn't the highly educated Indians administrating that money or going overseas into private accounts. But we take that very seriously, and a lot of the processes that you talk about, the consultations that we're talking about, the status quo is what I'm hearing doesn't work. And by what I mean by that is not consultation and not understanding the underfunding, the responsibilities not being met. And when that understanding comes to bear, I think you'll find that you can change that status quo by honoring those treaties and doing the things that need to be done to keep those schools alive. My father went to boarding schools. My father also went to Haskell. I heard that school mentioned here today. My sister attended a school that Senator Franken helped generously with poor conditions there, and that was in the northern part of our state. But the one thing that I consistently hear is meaningful consultation for the particular tribe that's affected by federal acts. Meaningful consultation between the departments that affect those programs or what project they're working on, and an understanding of the trust. I could explain to you a lot of the reasons why these trust applications sit on the shelf for so long. You've got tribes that can barely afford to fund their schools, and IHS, well, you wait long enough and it sits long enough on a desk, your environmental assessment expired. It's as simple as that. Now you've got to come up with a lot of money and so forth. And this is all intertwined in the administrative level of the Office of Realty, an extension of the BIA that takes land in a trust. That type of technical work comes at a high cost. You have people in the trust process applying standards that just quite possibly are not there, which has happened to us. So we have a lot of experience in that. We're very fortunate that we have a lot of educated people that can bring us up to speed on that and understand that process. Right now we have a realtor office solicitor that's doubling up on the title efforts that every one of you who bought homes or property go through transfer of right-of-ways or covenants that were previously held that you need to maintain, they need to come back. This individual needs another reaffirmation of that. So legally it's covered, but they need a legal reaffirmation of that so that the federal government is not stuck with the bill of, say, barrel full of pollution that needs to get cleaned up. Now, I don't know why the federal government would be held accountable for that, but there's some standard of application or understanding of some type of application that quite possibly we've never heard of. That's where the consultation process falls. And as far as school funding and absconding with funds, you know, that is something that if we had process and control and exercised our sovereignty on, that we would make sure that our children got educated. We're in that process of doing that now, and we are very fortunate. But one thing we don't want to have happen is to have that success supersede the responsibility the federal government has in providing some of those services. I even heard about IHS dollars getting turned back, and in our particular case, the IHS wanted a full accounting of all of our tribal enterprises, all of our tribal finances, to reconcile a shortage of IHS funds. That's the money that you see back. We refused because, quite frankly, that's their accounting that they're giving back, not ours. And we do very well to supplement that money. So if we can, we'll redirect what we have, if we can't use it, to other tribes that can. So we don't want to be relieving anybody's responsibility or put our nose into who gets what or who owes what. We're constantly trying to mend these fences that's not at this particular level, and quite frankly, I hope we can continue to do that as we are very fortunate. So, thank you.